Elaine Clegg, you are back. How are you?
I am great. How are you doing?
I am doing swimmingly. You have an interesting position. So first off, you're the CEO of Valley Regional Transit,
I
correct?
am.
Fantastic. You have a board that you answer to, correct? How many people are on your board?
Up to 29. Right now we have 23 that are active.
Gotcha. So you have a very large board.
Very large.
You are in charge of producing a bus service and public transit all throughout the Treasure Valley, which is quite stretched out, obviously. We're ranging all the way from Caldwell through Nampa, Meridian, Eagle, all the way to Boise. You have a difficult position, though, because you're, again, trying to produce a public transit system in an area where people very much enjoy large trucks and driving themselves around.
Sure.
They also don't like density, right? So they don't like big buildings. They don't like apartments. So they don't want density. They also want to keep their ag land, which means they don't want development sprawling into their ag land. It also happens to be one of the most popular areas in the entire country for growth. So by percentage wise, so we're growing at this breakneck speed. We need employment opportunities throughout the area. People don't want to go into ag areas, but they also don't want infill. And here you are sitting in the center, a few days after an election where now you have all of these different city council people to sit down with and explain, this is what we're doing, this is what we've been doing, and this is what we're trying to do. Help me understand.
Well, what we are doing is trying to make the bus system we currently have as good as we possibly can so that we can prove that we, in fact, do know how to run a bus system. We do know how to make sure that if something isn't working, we fix it, we make it better. We also, as I talked about last time I was here, have this weird budget that is dependent on 15 different annual budget cycles of 15 different partners. And I don't know what my budget is until September. And I have to start on October 1st running that budget. But I have to wait till all of them approve their budget to know if and how much they're going to contribute to us so that we can do services for them. And it's a dance. Every year doesn't work very well. It's really hard to plan. But despite that, we are planning. We're creating a new long-range plan that envisions what it really could look like if we had good transit service in the Treasure Valley and what difference it could make in people's lives. You mentioned, people have to get to work. If I live in Caldwell because the housing there is cheaper and I work in Boise, my annual transportation costs are well above $15,000 a year. And if you add that to the housing I just bought that was a little cheaper versus the housing I might have bought in Boise where it might cost me much less to travel, it actually almost eats up everything I save by buying that cheap housing. And so maybe I can't take that job in Boise. Maybe instead I try to find one somewhere closer and it doesn't pay as much. Or I take 2 or 3 jobs closer and then I'm traveling even more. It also doesn't do as much for the economy as I think it could. Because right now, every time you widen a road, it actually makes the economic activity along that roadway harder, not easier. Used to be when you build a new road, it was always like, oh, yeah, we're building the economy because now you can have all these things along the road. Well, the road already exists. The things already exist. You widen the road. You make it harder to use the things that already exist.
A quick note on that point. I occasionally go to this jiu-jitsu place on Saturday that's called Brave Jiu-Jitsu. It's right off State Street. Okay. Yeah. Enjoy it. Really like the people there. Really cool guys. And I go there, I'm like, I like seeing other people, variety. So I go down there and it's right off State Street. So I'm going 50 miles an hour and there's no pull out. It's literally like you're going to go from 50, you're making a right turn into the drive. You got to make a right left real fast. And every time it's like I'm white because every time it's like there's a giant Dodge Ram right behind me. And all I see is the grill as I put the blinker on to see how far back the person is. And it's like, okay, here we go. Just pray. And you pull into that parking lot. So yeah, I could 100% understand. It's like, that's really fast. It's not very fun to do. And so I get where you're coming from, where it's like, look, you're actually reducing economic opportunity because, I could see other people not wanting to do it or waiting until whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Choosing not to, do it at a different time, not doing it as often. The other part of it is, all of the land that we use for travel is land that's not productive in terms of tax. So you're not taxing that land because it's all public land. And every time you widen a road, you take more of it out of production. And so at some point, it just stops having the same return on investment that we used to expect from transportation. We think that transit actually offers a way to begin turning that around and again begin getting a return on investment for some investment in helping people move easier and faster and more of them in the same space rather than expanding the space, taking it out of production, and expecting people to just do it on their own.
Okay. One thing that people bring up when you start talking about public transit is the disdain they have for notable systems like the New York subway.
Sure.
Okay. Now, I've never been to New York. I've never been on the subway. I've only heard terrible things about it. That's fine. But the system still works. First off, how many people ride the subway a day? Like millions or something, right? Like some astronomical number.
I don't know the exact number, but I think over a year's time, it's 3 billion and something.
That's like 10 million a day.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. So the system from a functionality standpoint, not from a like, hey, does it smell in here, but from a, do people need it or utilize it? Is it better than the alternative?
Yeah.
Like if we assume everybody's functioning as a rational actor, it's like, if this were not better than the alternative, we would have 0 riders.
Yeah.
But because we have 10 million a day, it's better than the alternative. So first off, it functions. And second, it's gross because public spaces in New York are gross. Like, and New York is the way it is, not because it has a subway system, right? New York is the way it is because it's New York, and that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Man, what do you think is going to happen in New York? Let's not get into it. It's going to be wild times. We're going to see what's going to happen. But people bring up like New York or Portland. It's like, guys, look, these cities have different policies that have led to it being the way it is.
And I would say this. I was just both in New York and Portland for rail conferences, and I rode the subway or the light rail in each place. And I am certain that there are places within each of those systems that are gross and where bad things happen. My experience in both of them was fine. Just, I got from where I needed to go, where I was to where I needed to go. It was easy, it was cheap, it was fast. And I didn't run into anybody that looked dangerous. Now, I'm a big woman. I don't tend to get scared of people, and I sit big and don't let people intimidate me. I think some people maybe
you stretch your arms out. You're like, dressing all black and stuff.
When you play sports, you learn to be big. Right?
What sport were you playing?
I played basketball. I played softball. I played field hockey. Field hockey's a fun one.
Yeah, but you're like 6 feet tall. Every field hockey player I know is like 4 foot nothing.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I was the goalie. It was fine.
No, I was a wing. Because
okay.
I could just run down the field and get the ball into the center. It worked.
Okay. Well, great. There you go. Yeah, I was like basketball, volleyball, probably. I didn't see field hockey coming.
Whatever. And anyway.
So you had experience where you're like, I didn't see anybody get mugged, and I'm sure bad things happen, obviously.
Yeah, and were some of the cars maybe not in the best shape, a couple here and there, but for the most part, like you say, it works. People imagine New York without the subway. I guess that's what I like to have people think about. If the subway didn't exist, what would the roads look like? What would the other public realm look like if you didn't have an ability to move all of those people without congestion, without delay, all of that distance all over the place? I don't know how you would do it. You wouldn't have New York. New York would not be what it is.
Right.
It would not be the world's financial center because there wouldn't be enough space, physical space, to have as much activity as you have in New York that you need to make it that financial center.
Right, and Tokyo has municipal. So like every large system has a public transit. And again, like I rode BART when I was in my former life, and I'm not telling you I enjoyed the smell on BART every time I went on it. But like there were plenty of times when I rode it where it was totally fine. Especially as a younger person, I remember I rode it. My dad took me into the city to get my mom a bracelet. It was like an not engagement, but anniversary gift. And I remember riding BART, and there was no problem in the BART station when I was a young person. Right, policies and lifestyle in the area changed, and that changed the way that the system operated and the representation on there. Anyway, but
not saying that Boise wants to be like New York, but no. some of the criticism you hear, you need to sort of take with a grain of salt. Transit is still the safest way to travel. by far. Collision-wise, there's hardly ever collisions, and even crime. So if you're a driver, you still occasionally get, somebody has a road rage incident, somebody hits you and then does other things. If you compare the people who ride transit versus people who drive and the amount of crime they face, it's actually safer on transit.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Coming back to your price point, when you're like, look, if you live in Caldwell and you transport yourself into Boise, downtown Boise for work, you're roughly going to be at $15,000. Now, you had mentioned a price point around there last time we spoke, and I was like, how do you parse this out? So correct me if I'm wrong, because I thought about this for like a couple weeks. I'm like, what is that number? Because I believe you, I just don't understand it. So first, for me, I'll just tell you right out of the blocks. I have a studio downtown, and during the legislative session, I have to go downtown to engage in that studio. So I drive down State Street by myself in the blinding sun, by the way. It's horrifically
it's
terrifying.
Terrible time of day to drive downstate.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't see any. And now there's construction on State. So it's like, it is the most, even if I'm trying just on the phone with somebody, I have to get off the phone because I'm like, I have to focus.
Yeah.
And it's speakerphone. I'm not even holding my phone.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I get down there. I have right out of the blocks. If I'm there for 8 hours, I'm going to have a $20 parking fee.
Yep.
Okay. So 5 days a week, that's $100. So every month it's like 430-ish bucks, right? And if you do 50 weeks a year, let's just say that's $5,000 right away just for parking. Now, if I'm an employee, I don't get to deduct that. That's after tax dollars.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's be clear. If I make $100,000, I'm actually spending like, I don't know, $7,500 or $7,000 or $6,500 for that $5,000 after-tax dollar. And that's just parking. Let's say that it's a gallon of gas both ways. Okay. At $3, $3.50, 5 times, that's another 15 bucks a week. Obviously 50 weeks a year, we're looking at $750. And we're, obviously after-tax dollars, so that's another $1,000. So you go from just parking and gas, I'm looking at right now, right around $7,500 in gross pre-tax dollars that I have to get to.
Yeah.
Obviously, I have to have a car that's insured. So let's chalk on another $1,000-ish. And again, let's say I don't have a business of my own and, I happen to, but let's say I'm just an employee. I don't get to deduct that.
Yeah.
So that's another like $1,300 at least, depending on the quality of your car, obviously. So 75, let's say we're at 9,000. Okay. And that's just insurance, parking, and gas. Yeah. Let's say maintenance, tires, and general maintenance. That's another $1,000 or $2,000. Now we're at $11,000 easy. Depreciation. Let's say my car was $30,000 and I'm going to get 10 years out of it. That's taken off $3,000 a year. So we were at $11,000. Now we're at $14,000. And let's just throw $1,000 miscellaneous on. So really quickly, are those like the
Yep, that's exactly how they figure it. There's a organization in Chicago called the Center for Neighborhood Technology, and they gather data from all over the country on cost of insurance, cost of fuel, cost of parking, all of those things, and they figure it for each area.
So these are the hidden costs that, like, by the way, I've really had to square this way because I'm like, look, even if I go down to the legislature or down to the downtown, like, let's say for 4 months, every time I go down, I was down there yesterday for I got invited to the Dairy West Dairy Conference. I'm like, it was at the Grove. I'm like, great. And I have some interviews that I'm doing with people. They were fantastic interviews. Like, I'm happy to be there. But every time I go, it's $20 because I'm there for like 8 hours. And I just look at that every time I hold my card up. I'm like, that's $20, man. And what did I get for the $20 besides the great time of being down here? And by the way, I'm nowhere close to anywhere that's not going to have a parking fee.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like if I could park, maybe the play is I start parking in the neighborhoods and ride those green scooters. Like ride this green scooter in.
Some people do that.
Yeah, but then
the scooter costs money.
Right. These are real. There's no way I'm getting out of a transportation cost if I live in Boise. And I don't even live in Caldwell, right? Yeah. Like I live in the, unincorporated Ada County.
So back in 2018, when we did our first long range plan, we figured the personal cost of travel in Ada and Canyon counties at almost $2 billion a year.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. So each of us, individually spending a little bit over a period of a year, if that adds up to $2 billion a year, you're still going to have to spend something to travel. But if you didn't have to spend that much, what could you do with the difference?
Yeah.
Probably something pretty big.
Walk me back a little bit from a value proposition for, I think people will come to their own determinations about what they enjoy from a habit standpoint.
Sure. Sure.
Like I just articulated, kind of like sobering, like how much my car, and thankfully I don't have to go there. I don't work there 52
Every
weeks
day.
a year. Right. So like it's not quite that expensive. And I use my car for a myriad of other things. So even if I attribute $15,000 of costs, the insurance I pay, that helps me go to Costco too. Like I'm an adult, I need to move around. Right. Yeah. But what I've talked to some businesses, like I've had Bobby Joe from the Boise Metro Chamber on before. I'm trying to get somebody from Micron on that's going to talk about the expansion, but Micron is a perfect example of a company that's saying, hey, look, man, we're going to have real employment needs, which means our employees are going to need transportation routes. They're planning or are in fact building the largest parking garage in the state of Idaho, which means they're planning. It's like we have massive transportation needs. What are the needs and articulations of some of the larger industries or businesses in the area? Are they worried about it, or are they just like, hey, look, our people will get here no matter what. We're not worried about it.
It's becoming more and more of a worry. Micron is worried enough that during construction, they've started their own little bus shuttle for construction folks because there wasn't enough space on the freeway or at the site to get everybody there who needed to work there. So now everybody will say, well, gosh, that's fine. That's private. They paid for it. It works. But we can make it more efficient, more effective if we do it jointly. We have probably our biggest growing internal directly generated fund source is our PASS program. And we have more and more companies saying, my employees can use the bus, some of them, not all of them, but I'm willing to pay you X number of dollars a year plus X number of dollars per person who actually uses it to make free bus passes available to all my employees, because I know that will reduce my need to provide parking. It will increase productivity. It will do all kinds of things. So we have a great communications department which handles marketing for the PASS program. That's one of our fastest growing programs.
So the employers themselves are saying, hey, look, we need to figure out a way to fill this gap.
Yeah.
And they're participating in like a guaranteed and then a la carte manner.
Yes.
Huh. That's interesting. Do you think that that's going to be something that will take over a larger portion of your funding needs?
Potentially. So as I look to the future, the United States, if you look around the world, does this much differently than everybody else. Much of it is on general fund tax dollars. And I think in the beginning, we're going to need that for the next few years until, some number of years till we figure this all out. But in Japan, for instance, or Hong Kong or Taiwan, they pay for much of their, especially high-capacity transit, the high-speed trains and those, with development around the stations. The transit agency owns the development. They make income from the rents and other things, and they use that income to run the transit.
So you would make like commercial hubs for commerce directly around the stations, and then then you, VRT, would be the landlord for like 15 shops, whatever those shops may be. Could be, dude, you should do like a dry cleaner so people could just like pick stuff up all the way, like back from work.
Coffee shop, the dry cleaner.
Yeah.
Maybe the place where you bring your pet and board them all day. Who knows? I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities.
The key. You know what you should do? You should make like car shops right now, like mechanic shops.
Yeah.
So you drive to the parking lot and then you drop the keys off and you get on the bus or the train, whatever it is, come back and your car got a service and everything.
Yeah.
That would go like
There's
gangbusters.
all kinds of opportunities. And it wouldn't be that VRT would totally own. I mean,
sure,
that does happen in other places in the world, but a lot of public-private partnerships where we could bring some funding, some financing to the table through our federal. We have a program actually that we're working on to try and get some federal financing for these kinds of developments. And so you partner with that private developer. You make some, they make some. Everybody's happy because now it's really easy to get to that place and really easy to get around once you get there.
Gotcha. So taking all of this into account, I had a couple people on, I was going to say,
yeah,
the relationship with the cities is always evolving, and you have different municipalities that are in more support and less in support. Recently, I had a bunch of people on from, obviously Caldwell. I did the entire Treasure Valley.
Yeah.
This came up twice, which I wasn't expecting, with people coming out of Nampa. And I think it was now Councilwoman Skog, Debbie Skog, who did gain election. Congratulations, Debbie. Good times.
Yes, congratulations.
She brought up VRT, and she said something that I was like, I don't know. I don't have the stats right in front of me, but I don't believe that's true. And again, I was like, my point is not to argue with her, but she was saying that there were only 15 rides per month in Nampa in VRT. I was like, 15 a day? She was like, no, 15 per month. What are the stats around Nampa for riderships?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. It's a misunderstanding. There was one of the council members talking about his experience on transit. He rode once a week for 5 weeks. There was one other person on the bus that he rode on the way home. And he concluded that on that particular bus, on that run back into town, there must only be 15 rides a month. And whether that's true or not, to be honest, that assumes that nobody else rode that bus except him and that one person that he saw. And I doubt that that's true. Last bus of the day is typically the one that has the least ridership. But that misunderstanding was that was all that happened in Nampa, was that one run a day back into Nampa from Boise.
So it's like, hey, look, you're talking about one bus at one particular time and then discount. So if it's like, and again, I don't know exactly the time frame, but like, say it's a 6 a.m. bus or the 7 a.m. bus. It's like, okay, but you're only counting a 7 a.m. line here and then like a 5 p.m. line coming back.
Not even the coming back.
Oh, so
just
it's
one way.
Gotcha. So then just with that, well, even with that, if there was only one other person, it'd be 30 rides per day or 30 rides per month.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
But in fact, that also presumes that the transit agency doesn't understand or track ridership and react if they find something that's not working. And that's also not true. So a couple of years ago when I got hired, we took a look at the whole system. We said, what are the pieces of the system that are performing less than we'd like them to? And what would we do to make them better? And so in Nampa, Caldwell, we had a route that was only attracting about 350 riders a month. It was really underperforming. And we had another route that was attracting enough, but not as many as we thought it could. And both of them were only peak hour. They only ran, early in the morning and after work when people got off work to come back home.
So there was nothing in it. Was like, listen, you're running at 7 and 7:30 in the morning, and then this other one's running at like 4:30 and 5. Yeah. And so that's the peak transit time.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And irregular. They'd be a half hour for 2 runs and then an hour. And then, one of them was 45 minutes on a couple of runs. So you never really knew when they were going to be there. And you couldn't count them in the middle of the day if you had to come home for some reason.
So if my bus was like, okay, I got to catch the 8 a.m. And if I miss the 8 a.m., it could be 8:30 or 8:45. I'm not 100% sure. And then after 10 o'clock, I don't even know when it comes back.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
Exactly. So very, very inconsistent, unreliable. We took both those routes, combined them together, made one route, runs all day, it runs longer hours, and it runs every hour, all day, every hour. Whatever your stop is, if it's 9:42, it'll also come at 10:42 and 11:42. Every hour, same time. You can count on it. We more than doubled the ridership between the two rides.
By reducing from 2 buses to 1 and giving a regularity.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So the first year, it was up almost 40%. It's up another almost 40%.
And how many people per day ride that?
So,
or per month, whatever.
Per month on those particular routes. Well, per month overall in Canyon County on our fixed routes, and we only have 3 of them now in Canyon County. They're all Canyon County. We had a little more than 4,000 to begin with. We're approaching 6,000 today.
Okay.
Per month.
So this 6,000 riderships. Yeah. That could be 6,000 one-way trips or 3,000 round trips.
Right.
But either way, the idea that only 15 people rode per month. It's like, no, we're talking in the like 4, 5, 6,000 per month.
Yeah.
And that's just, okay.
And that only includes those fixed routes. Also in Canyon County, we have what's called on-demand systems, demand response. Part of it is paratransit for people that are disabled. Part of it is for older adults and other folks that are disabled that don't qualify for the paratransit. And part of it is just a paid fare on-demand system. We move about 45,000 people a year on those systems, as in addition to these almost 6,000 a month.
Gotcha.
So is it worth what Nampa and Caldwell pay for that? I think it is. If you look at the economic development that comes from that, we did a study on this. For every dollar we spend, there's $3 in economic impact. That's both direct, our payroll, the employees that we employ, indirect, the supplies we buy, the buses we buy, the tires we buy, all of that. And then this induced demand, which is the things that the riders participate in at one end or the other of their ride. Maybe they stop at the grocery store, they go to a doctor, whatever, they spend money when they do that. So
right. And even if they're going to work, first off, they're generating a good or a service, and then they're patronizing that area as well with like lunch or something.
Exactly. So 1 to 3, and that's a pretty typical number around the country, and that doesn't include even those extra economic impacts. If we had a deeper way to analyze it, it's usually 1 to 5. But what we could prove with the numbers we had, 1 to 3 ROI.
Okay. Across the country, we have different mechanisms for rail, right? Because we're talking bus. And if my memory serves, the first time we met, you said light rail is generally around $100 million per mile.
Yeah,
is that accurate?
or more. Yep.
Okay. Now that's if you were like, okay, we're going to run down State Street. We're going to make a light rail that runs parallel to State Street.
Yep.
So now you're taking out Brave Jiu-Jitsu. You're taking out part of the golf course. You're taking out, whatever's on the south side or the north side of the street.
Or you're tunneling, and then it's even more expensive.
Right. Well, you could go north side of the street and take out Satin Dolls. That'd be fine. But then you'd also have to take out Corona Village.
That would not be your...
Wait, is Corona Village off of State Street or is that off Chinden?
No,
I think it's off State Street. There you go.
It's off State.
I have a neighbor who loves Corona Village, and he was like, "It's a fantastic." I was like, "I've never been. I'll have to give it a shot." Anyway, so it would be at least $100 million per mile. So if you got to do an 8-mile stretch, you're looking at almost $1 billion. So, but you also mentioned there are other opportunities with existing rail lines throughout the Treasure Valley. I've never seen rail lines off State Street, but you guys do have rail lines like south of what is it, 84 or whatever?
Yeah. North of 84.
North of 84, okay.
Between Franklin and 84, for the most part, it runs all the way through the heart of the valley. It's an existing freight line. Right now it moves, 30 cars a day or so of freight in and out of the valley.
Yeah, right next to RC Willey, right?
There you go. There you go.
I was like, where is it? Got it, totally.
And it takes off in downtown Nampa, goes right by the Ford Idaho Center, CWI, goes at the other end by the Boise Depot, and then turns south. And guess what? It gets within a mile of Micron. That one really, really interests me. So Compass, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which plans how to spend all of the federal transportation money in the valley, did a study for us called Planning and Environmental Linkages Study. I don't know why feds have to name these things this way, but they do. So a Pell. And the Pell said, if we did high-capacity transit in the Treasure Valley, should we run it on the freeway? Should we run it on this rail line, on rail or on buses? Or should we run it on one of the other arterials like Franklin or Fairview? And, what would get the best time? What would be maybe the least expensive? Or at least, what's the cost comparison? And what would... take the least land out of production? Well, guess what? The rail line won by a big number. And on all of the analysis, they had, I think, 11 factors. The rail line was number 1 on 8 of those 11. And 80% of the people who looked at it and made comments said, yes, I would choose the rail. So the board then said, well, this is our preliminary preferred alternative. let's look at it further. And Compass getting ready to do a little bit further analysis. We, Valley Regional Transit, are part of a grant that is going to identify, can we run more freight on this? What's the market potential? What would it take to run passenger rail? What's the minimum viable number of improvements and the cost of those to run passenger rail? Sidings, new gate crossings. There's many of the crossings don't have gates. There'd be places where we'll have to have a passing lane. There might be a bridge or two that will have to be double tracked, but maybe not. So they're going to do the analysis. A, tell us, could we make more money on freight if we used it better? B, what would it cost to run passenger side by side with that freight? We don't have that number yet, but I'm confident it's going to be relatively affordable compared to the $2 billion that ITD tells us it would take to put another lane on the freeway for those 33 miles, for instance.
$2 billion to widen the freeway.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Okay. So some people say 1.6. I've heard 2.
Listen, what's $500 million between friends?
Right.
What's $500 million? It's good. I trust you.
But a lot of money to widen the freeway. And so,
and it's growing every day, right? Like the cost of land in the Treasure Valley is only going up.
And as I mentioned, the other piece of that is that the rail right-of-way already exists as is. It wouldn't take any more land out of production, off the tax rolls. It would, in fact, just use that land more productively than it's being used today. All of the other alternatives would require some kind of right-of-way acquisition.
Man, that's wild. There was a train freight line in Berkeley, actually, that I used to go see my sister in Davis when she was in college there. Then my mom was living in Sacramento. And it was the oddest.
The Capital Corridor, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I would jump on, and it was odd because there was no like formal train station. It was literally the train would come and it would stop and you jump on, and then a conductor came by and like you got a ticket, and my brother and I, we bought like one time we were going to see my mom. we really enjoyed like just overeating, because like that's what you do when you're 20. So we ordered like 12 breakfast burritos or something. But like, it was totally nice and totally clean. It was nothing like riding BART, by the way. Like it was a really nice, it was run by Amtrak. And I was able to go, because when I was 19, I couldn't get to like Davis, and right. I didn't have a vehicle. So I would just jump on, and it was like an hour ride to Davis, totally fine. And then I just walked to her place. But like that was a really effective way for me I don't know the details of how Berkeley came by contracting with Amtrak or what the relationship was, but it was one of those things where it was an active freight line that they just started running Amtrak on, and it really worked for me. I wouldn't have had any other opportunity to go see family. Yeah,
that particular corridor is one of the most successful ones in the country that runs freight and passengers side by side. I can't remember the passenger numbers right now, but it still is operated by Amtrak. It's a Capital Corridor Commission, so they did a joint powers agreement between Union Pacific, Amtrak, all of the agencies around it, the cities and the counties and what have you. And that commission managed the contract with Amtrak to run the freight and also run the passengers, and also manages the logistics for the freight. Obviously, they don't manage the freight, but they dispatch it and do those things.
Sure.
And that's one of the things that makes it so successful, is that that's all done in one coordinated way. And instead of typically the Class 1 freight railroad will dispatch the passenger, but it's sort of a second, afterthought and not part of their core mission.
I actually, thinking about that, and I think I mentioned to you previously, there was this academic advisor that I went to frequently, and when I was in college, and she was like, "Oh, I just got a house." I'm like, "Oh, congratulations." I was like 20, 21. She was like, "Yeah, check it out." And I look at the thing, I was like, "This says Sacramento. We're sitting in Berkeley." She's like, "I know." I'm like, "What, you're driving from Sacramento every day?" She's like, "No, I jump on the train." I was like, "That sounds crazy to me." She's like, "No, it's an hour. It's a straight shot. I have my laptop, I get a breakfast burrito, like whatever,
Of course.
and she was like, and then there was a shuttle that like would pick employees up every 5 or 10 minutes. And then, because you just go straight up university. And I was like, that seemed, and for a long time, I was like, that seems crazy to me. It's like an hour on a train and like it takes, or maybe it was an hour, whatever it is. Juxtapose that to, I had a friend who was living in the Modesto area. Okay. So instead of going north, you head east into the Central Valley.
Yeah.
And he was like, he worked counter commute, right? So he didn't live in Modesto. He worked in Modesto. He lived in El Cerrito or something.
Okay.
He lived in the Bay Area.
Okay.
So he would be traveling east when everybody was traveling west into the economic hub. He said that he knew people that would leave at like 4 a.m. because if they got stuck in that traffic, it was hours. So they would get to work. It was still an hour and a half. So they leave at 4, they get to work at 5:30, they'd sleep on or under their desk for like a couple hours, then wake up, get their work done. And then they'd have to get back on the road by 2:00 instead of the close of workday because they would be stuck in. So it was this like a legendary commute from the Central Valley. Wow. And there was no effective like public transit that was running in that area. So you had this just sea of headlights coming into and then out of the Bay Area. Again, juxtapose that to the gal who just jumped on the train and it was like an hour or hour and a half and she'd, drink her coffee or whatever.
Or read or sleep, or you can ride distracted. You can't drive distracted. You can ride distracted.
Right. And you couldn't capture that time in any other way in the car.
Right.
You could talk on the phone, but you're not like typing things up where she would just have her laptop out. She was returning emails and stuff. So as far as productivity and time, aside from the whole turmoil of like up at 4 a.m., I would much rather ride a train for an hour or an hour and a half than be in like stop and go traffic for an hour and a half, just like suffering through it.
I would too. I agree with you. And already in this region, again, to juxtapose it, I have a friend that I worked with on some tree issues, and he was going up to Weiser to check out a forest service project up there. They left Boise at about 4 a.m. because I wanted to get up there, start of the day. And he said the freeway was already crowded coming into Boise when they left at 4:30. And I see that. I drive counter from my home in Boise out to Meridian to work. And I do drive most days because the transit isn't as great as I'd like it to be. And I would not want to drive the other way already. So this rail line that we're talking about parallels that entire route right now.
And it already exists, right? Like that's the key.
Yeah.
You're not doing 100 million or more per mile because the rail's already laid. You guys just got to modify it, add some things, get some cars, call it a day.
Yeah.
Let's do this today. Come on.
Let's
go. Let's get out there. Let's order the cars.
Let's please do. I do think I've found some used cars. Maybe we'll see, which
that'd be great.
Would save a lot of money. Yeah, let's do it today. We've started conversations with Union Pacific. We think it's in their best interest. Actually, they'll make more money if they let us own and operate this corridor while they still continue to have the freight rights to it. We are pretty certain that we could move a lot of commuters on it. And imagine this. Have you gone to a concert at the Ford Idaho Center lately?
I went to one event. I have not been to a concert.
And so the last time I tried to go, it was an hour on the freeway for about half of it on the shoulder to get off at Garrity's so you could turn onto Idaho Center Way so that you could get to the parking lot and park, and the same coming home. Guess what? The rail line goes right between the Ford Idaho Center and CWI campus. Valley Regional Transit already owns a park and ride literally at the back door of the Idaho Center.
That would be a lot better.
Wouldn't that be?
Yeah, the event I went to, it took forever. Yeah. And then leaving the park. You know what's funny? I never have a problem going to the event because you're anticipating and you're excited and you're like, this is going to be great. And it's like, great, whatever.
Right.
But dude, when you're leaving, Like when you walk out and you see the tail lights just exiting the parking lot, like I just get so much anxiety. I'm like, oh no, here, and everybody's flooding out, and ain't nothing to do. It's not like you could have got like. No, it's over. Like your life is over for like that hour.
You either leave early and avoid it, or you sit for an hour afterward out of your car. And
well, if the CWI conveyance happens, then it sounds like they'll be able to build like some kind of commercial outlay in the front of it. So it's like, yeah, just go get a drink or get a snack or do whatever you're going to do, and hang out, let the parking lot clear out. You probably shouldn't be getting a drink before you get in the car. You be the DD, let your friend get a drink.
At that point, maybe you get coffee.
Yeah. Yeah. Do whatever. Get a hot dog. It doesn't matter to me. Get something. Yeah, man. It's, I didn't do, I have these short fallings as a person. Like I'm not very cultured. So like people, like I've only been to 1 or 2 concerts in my life, and and I know it's not a great thing. And I also don't care about professional sports. So like going to see the Oakland A's, like I've been to a couple A's games. Funny enough, I went to 1 A's game in my entire college career, and it was game 20 where the movie Moneyball was made out. I was in the stands for that game. It was a Wednesday night game. Goodness. It was a $1 ticket. So my buddy Max, who was like this raving A's fan, was like, let's go to the A's game after practice. We were on the rowing team together. And I was like, dude, I don't have money for a ticket. He's like, it's $1. I'm like, okay, great. And he's like, we'll jump on BART. I was like, great. So we jump on BART, and it's $2.50. And I'm not saying I love riding on BART, but it got us there. And then it was $1 hot dogs. So we each bought like 20 hot dogs, and we took the bucket of onions up to the nosebleed section and just ate our dumb I'm sure I have nitrate poisoning from the hot dogs still, like to this day. If you took a hair sample, it's like nitrates.
It's still there.
Yeah, but I was there, but like all of it was accessible because we had, public transit. But I know people really enjoy going to BART games and stuff, or excuse me, going to A's games and, going down to Oracle Arena and all of the other stuff. And there was like BART, it was right there.
Yeah.
Also the airport. It was like you would have those little mini shuttles that would take you to the BART station. So when you're talking like it's a mile from Micron, it's like, okay, then Micron, all they need to do is set up their own either bus shuttle station or like a light rail that only goes a mile throughout 100 million. Yeah. It's like, get your own 1 mile light rail that people get off and they get on that little, it's like the thing going around Disneyland, the monorail. Just like one monorail stop. That's it.
Little circulator. Off we go. I've lived in smaller cities most of my life, so I haven't got to a lot of professional games, but I was in Boston this fall, and I've been a Boston Red Sox fan since Carl Yastrzemski hit a home run in a game I saw when he was a minor leaguer. It was such a fun game. And anyway, so I've been a Red Sox fan my whole life. I'm in Boston. They're playing the Yankees. My nieces can come over. We go to the Red Sox game. How did we get there? We rode the T. Of course we rode the T. How else are you going to get there? And it was great. And afterward, the anxiety was still there a little bit. We had to wait through 5 trains to get on.
It's so bad. The anxiety when you're leaving so bad.
Imagine if it were a car.
Yeah.
I mean, 5 trains took 15 minutes maybe.
Right.
And then we were all gone.
Yeah, I actually did twice. I went into the city for Halloween when I was in college. We used BART both times going from Berkeley into the city, and it's a mess, man. And then it's like everybody's flooding out of the trains. And then when you're going home, you're tired and you're standing on the platform. You're like, just get me the hell out of here. But again, compared to cars, it would have been infinitely worse.
Oh, yeah.
There's no freebie here.
Well, and this isn't about telling people they shouldn't drive or that they should ride transit. It's about saying that right now we have a system that forces you to make one choice, and that is to drive, because that's the only choice that works. 36% of our population doesn't drive. They're either too young or they're too old or they don't have a driver's license. 4% don't own a car in this valley. So essentially what you're saying to them is, well, you just go figure it out. You're on your own. You can CAD ride. You can pay for Ubers, whatever. Over a third of our population, we're saying, yeah, you figure it out. We're going to provide driving, and that's it. The other piece of it, to me, is that when you only offer that one choice, then you get the kind of congestion we're seeing really quickly. We're a pretty small metro region to have the kind of congestion that we're seeing. But because there's no other choice, people have no other way to get there. And then there's the fact of there are some trips, like the trip to the concert, that you might prefer to do transit, and others that you might prefer to drive. And if we had a system that was well integrated and had all of those choices, you could make that choice. I often ask people, they say, well, you know, Idahoans love their big trucks. They don't want to get out of their truck. They want to drive everywhere. And I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. How about when they go to New York or, you know, somewhere overseas or DC? Do you rent a car when you do that? Oh, heck no. Why would I do that? It's way easier to ride the transit. So nobody's saying you have to ride the transit all the time. We're saying, let's make it a choice that when it's easier, when you want to, you can make that choice. And in doing that, then those 36% of our population who don't have another choice have a higher quality of life.
Yeah.
And that, I think, creates a better place for all of us.
I have an appreciation for that. Elaine, it's a working day. I don't want to take your whole day. We are like, the coffee's hot. I'm vibrating off this.
This is great.
Yeah.
I do need to come back and talk about Amtrak one of these days.
Yes, I would love to. And again, I would also love to talk. You know what the problem is with talking with you? There's not a problem talking with you. I love it. The coffee's hot. We have a great time. The problem is it's very hard to trust a restaurant when it reviews itself. Like I've never gone to a Chinese food restaurant because the Yelp review is like, we are the owners of, you know, China Palace and we have the best Mongolian beef, 5-star. I'm like, I'm not listening to that. There is an understanding that I think needs to be, that I would like to gain from employers, from understanding what people need because this is a big piece of it, which is like, whenever I do talk to employers, the struggles that they're experiencing and what they're hearing from, like the difficulty with for instance, in the medical field. Yeah. The difficulty of attracting people here for medicine is one that's so multifaceted. You know, a large piece that it comes down to our education funding, which is the dangest thing. Not only that, the age of the residents. Now, let me paint you a really fast picture. You're a young doctor. Let's say we're both doctors. We're 35 and we're like, where are we going to raise a family? Well, are you going to go somewhere? If we're doctors and we got like our medical degrees, are we going to go somewhere where we perceive the education system to be underfunded? Probably not. Probably not, because like I'm not going. Like I like education. Doctors. We were in residency together, and I'm like, where are you going, Elaine? You're like, I'm not going where there's not a good school system.
If I ever have kids, I want them to have good school system.
Now, amazingly, Idaho doesn't actually have a bad school system, but it's not very well funded, right? So like we're the number one bang for our buck. Okay, so if you and I are in residency, we're like, man, where are there good schools? Here's the other thing: we've just spent an ungodly amount of money to become doctors, and like perhaps making the absolute most money is not a priority, but I'm going to make some money. So help me God, right?
Got to pay off those debt.
Right. So then all of a sudden we start looking around Idaho. We're like, well, there are large populations of aging residents here, which means we're going to get reimbursement rates that are more like, you know, Medicare. Yeah, exactly. So all of a sudden it's like, well, how much does Medicare, what portion of the population is Medicare reimbursement? Because we're in Idaho and a large number of people came here from out of state to retire, all of a sudden the reimbursement gets problematic. And these are also people that came with their retirements in tow, like CalPERS or something. So because you have out-of-state retirements, these pensions were derived from economic systems that are not centered around what we have here. So they come in here and they start buying houses based on their pension from over there, not based on the economic capacity here. So they drive up the housing price. Yeah. So you and I in residency, we're like, wait a minute. The funding for the schools is one of the lowest in the nations. We're not looking at necessarily results. We just hear bad funding. We just know the funding. We know that population is aging and our reimbursement rates will be low. And we know that cost of living from a housing standpoint is very high because the out-of-state retirees drove up the cost. So all of a sudden, we're like, wait, if you and I are looking for places to go, we may not pick Idaho. These are things that 6 months ago, I would have never envisioned were the things artificially keeping down the medical establishment in Idaho, but they are. They are. These are apps. And so again, very much like that, I want to understand the pain points for businesses, especially around transit. Like, is this something like, do larger businesses look at this and say, hey, look, one of the number one problems that people ask or try to confront when considering to move here or work for these companies is, if I don't want to live in downtown and the business is oriented downtown, how do I get there? And maybe they spent 2 weeks considering and were staying in an area that they really liked, and they did the commute twice or 3 times. They're like, hey man, I don't want to do this every day. Like, this is not that fun. And there's no other option, because if we're getting world-class professionals, we may be drawing them from other economic hubs that have transit. They're like, dude, when I lived here, or when I don't love living in Seattle, but I would just take the train. Or like, I don't like Portland, but it did have the train. Like, so we're drawing these professionals that had a taste of public transit options from other areas, that are then like, I don't want to go to Boise because I don't want to drive to work every day. Yeah. If that's what employers are hearing,
we are hearing that.
I want to hear that.
Yeah.
Because I believe your Mongolian beef is good, but I want to hear from your other customers.
I absolutely, I want you to hear it from our other customers too, because if I'm the only one saying it, it's not going to happen.
It's hard to get behind, But Anyway, listen, thank you for coming. I feel like we got some work to do. I want to hear about the Amtrak next time you come in, and we'll go from there. All right.
It's a deal. It's a deal. Thanks for having me.